Hey, thanks for checking out my channel. I'm John Stark from MacMovieGuy.com, and this is a review of Say Hey, Willie Mays. Yep, this is a documentary. It's on HBO Max, or on HBO if you still just have HBO. I mean, it did air on HBO. I can't ignore that. Um, yeah, so it's out there. I'm a blind film critic, so I typically watch films with audio description. I also watch films without audio description, and sometimes I rake them through the coals. But this one has audio description, sort of. It's so this is a documentary, and normally with talking head documentaries, my expectations of audio description are different. This just focuses on the life and times of Willie Mays. It's really simple. If you're a fan of baseball, if you're a fan of Willie Mays, then this is the documentary for you. It's fortunately Willie Mays didn't do anything like crazy in his lifetime, so there's no like third act where they're like, and then they found the 13 children in Willie Mays's basement. There's nothing. It's very upbeat, fun for the whole family type of thing. I mean, if you've got a kid that's really interested in like the history of baseball, cool. Like, this is a great film for him, because I don't think there's anything offensive here. I have no idea what this film is rated, but if this is rated above PG, I would be shocked. Yeah, so it just explores Willie Mays from the beginnings of his life as a boy and how quickly, sports came to him, and he was playing ball when he was still in high school, but he was like giving his money to his grandmother, and his grandmother was like giving him like little bits of cash here and there. It was like sort of like making sure that he didn't go out and just blow all the money that he was earning from playing in the Negro Leagues. Yes, and that is where Willie Mays started, was in the Negro Leagues, and it talks about that, and it talks about how unfair it was that the players that were picked out of those leagues, where the teams were never compensated for losing their best players so slowly, because MLB was pulling the best players out of those leagues. It ended up shutting them down eventually, making them less interesting. But they used to be a force of their own. Everybody used to go to the games and sell them out, and they were really popular. But when you start losing your best players, I guess that kind of affects attendance. So that's what happens with Willie Mays. And then he goes out and he sort of works on becoming a star, and then it talks about him joining San Francisco Giants, and how does Joe DiMaggio feel about that? And I'm like, cool, we're gonna tie in Joe DiMaggio here. Awesome. Talks about the building of the stadium and how it affected Willie Mays and his whole being a center fielder, and his home run spree. He had to figure out how to hit a home run out of a park where the wind was blowing the ball back into the field. Just a lot of things, and eventually we get to a point where Barry Bonds just starts talking a lot, and we see how much that Willie Mays affected Barry Bonds' life, and how close the two of them are, and it's just Willie Mays' life. A lot of interesting little tidbits throughout the way. It's a good documentary to have. It's actually pretty comprehensive. It's amazing. It's kind of sad because it's only a little over 90 minutes. It's like an hour and 38, I think. But it feels really good. Like, it actually gave you a pretty good Cliff Notes version of the entirety of Willie Mays' life, like from beginning to end, how long he played, talks about his retirement, talks about how white people were incredibly receptive to Willie Mays when they weren't necessarily receptive to other black people at the time. It's like everything. It's a really well edited, well paced documentary. It's not necessarily earth shattering or groundbreaking. It's not gonna teach you about climate change. It's not gonna teach you about private prisons or anything. Um, it's not gonna make you run out and join a cause. But for fans of Willie Mays and for fans of baseball and people who like baseball documentaries, like just a couple weeks ago, I reviewed Facing Nolan, the Nolan Ryan documentary. I thought that was really good too. This is like the same for me. This just has audio description. Facing Nolan had a really interesting narrator, which kind of made up for it. And this, I don't know how to describe it, like of the earth narrator that was just he sounded like he fell out of the cast of Yellowstone, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean he was just telling a story, and it was a really neat narration that we don't normally get in documentaries. I felt like maybe I was at an attraction at Disney World or something, and he was like, "Come on, little boys, let me tell you a story." This doesn't have that, but it does have audio description from the world's perkiest white dude ever. And I bring that up because I have had the opportunity to talk with other blind people about audio description, and I've had the opportunity to talk to a couple of black people who watch films with audio description, and I know that they prefer, and they can tell and hear and understand when a narrator is representing is black. I don't know why I feel like I have to beat around this bush, and I know that they prefer that when the material itself is aimed specifically at their audience. If it's a black film, they would love it to have a black narrator. If it's a black TV show, they'd love for it to have a black narrator. This is a documentary about Willie Mays. This guy sounds when he does talk, he sounds like he'd be really great for the Disney Channel. He is so upbeat. I bet he does kids parties, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but he is like very effervescent, almost to the point that when he jumps in and his narration, because the movie is not like an upbeat, it's not like a comedy, it's not really aimed at little kids, it's so out of place. I want audio description on everything, but I also want people to think of audio description as an art form in and of itself, and like, what can we do to elevate the art form? And I want people who make audio description to think about things like, what kind of narrator should be on this? Should he be the narrator for this documentary? And I'm going to go with no. I'm going to go on a pretty safe bet and say this guy's not black. And I'm going to also go on a pretty safe bet and say he's had far too much caffeine or whatever before narrating this documentary. I would so totally hire him to do everything. Family related, kids films, he'd be great. The next DreamWorks animation or Disney animation or whatever, let's get him in on it. But this is just really just so so jarring when he jumps in and he's like, so hey, we're gonna he's far too upbeat and perky when he does jump in, and for long stretches you don't hear him at all, which makes it even weirder because it's just like out of nowhere you remember that the film has audio description because he only describes things that we're missing visually when they have a break in time. Like if they show footage of Willie doing something, like Willie runs the bases. I don't know. then he'll interject, but I have no idea who's talking, and that's probably if I'm watching more and more of these talking head documentaries, right, where you have multiple people. That's what I call talking head documentary, where you just have person, and they just and it's just edited together, so that all of these people are telling the story. It's not one person. You know, you're not watching like Religulous, where Bill Maher is taking you through something. Um, it's a lot of people just sitting for interviews. It's not a getting out and exposing the system like The Cove. You know, it's just sitting and talking about Willie Mays with some old footage running in the background. So I think in these sorts of documentaries, what we need are, this is this person, this is this person, this is this person, this is this person, this is this person. And I think that would be great to interject more and more. And after you've, said who they are, you can always come back in later and say, just call them by their first name, like you would a character in any other movie. Once you've said, Willie Mays, then you can go back to Willie every other time. Or once you've said Barry Bonds, you just say Barry. It's things like that I think could really have made a difference, because there were definitely people in here that were talking that I don't know who the hell they were. No idea. None. At all. So yeah, it's kind of a problem. But I also didn't know who those people were in Facing Nolan. I think this is like the same for me. This year we produced two really solid baseball documentaries. The documentary itself is really well made, and the rise and the fall. The only thing that this documentary does that Facing Nolan didn't do and didn't feel like it had to, this documentary spends a lot of time right at the end on Barry Bonds. Now I know that he's the godson of Willie Mays, and it talks about this moment where Willie Mays is going out and championing Barry and trying to get him in the Hall of Fame. He's like, I'm not going to be around forever. Can you put this man in the Hall of Fame? And it's like, it's supposed to be a good moment, but I feel like we put a lot of emphasis at the end of the film on somebody who's not Willie Mays. Now, Facing Nolan begins and ends with Nolan Ryan. It's not Nolan Ryan passing the torch. It's not Nolan Ryan's BFF taking his position on the mound. It wasn't any of that. It was just Nolan Ryan. It was meant for people who were fans of Nolan Ryan. This spends a little bit more time than I would have liked. Barry Bonds comes in with a lot of thoughts towards the end. He has a lot of talking to the camera, and I think for me, if you're asking me what's the difference between Facing Nolan and Say Hey Willie Mays, and which one I would recommend more, I'm in a really weird place where Facing Nolan, which does not have audio description, I think is the better film than Say Hey Willie Mays. Both of them did a great job of telling the story of the baseball players. However, Willie Mays does it right at the end, just kind of stumbles a little bit by doing a little bit too much on Barry Bonds, becoming like a mini, like a little 10-minute documentary on Barry Bonds. And I don't think we needed that. I think a nice little mention would have been nice, but it's a little bit more than a mention. You'll see it. If you watch the film, you'll get what I'm saying. Maybe I'm being a little bit unfair, but this is not going to be that low of a grade. Anyway, I think it is time to grade. So I'm going to give Say Hey Willie Mays a B+. I gave Facing Nolan an A-. So if you're looking for the comparison of where the difference is, I thought it's really just a solid documentary. I learned a lot about Willie Mays, and I enjoyed listening to it. I don't think it stuck the landing. I would have preferred less Barry Bonds in a Willie Mays documentary, less about Barry Bonds. I mean, it even follows like his chasing the home run record, and lots of his feelings of growing up and being signed, and how Willie got him signed, and he chose the Giants because of Willie, and it's a lot of Barry Bonds at the end. So it's almost like a co-star or something to this film. Anyway, if you stayed this long, you must like me. So go ahead and subscribe. Click on that subscribe button. I'm trying to get to 100 this year. As of me recording this, I am 12 away, so I'm hoping to break 100, and it's not December yet, as of me recording this. I'm saying this because I do post one movie review a day, and there's only just so many days left in the month, and I have a feeling this is going to get posted in December, but it is currently November, but I'm backed up a little bit on reviews that I have already recorded, so you'll see this in December. I also have a website, macromovieguy.com. You can go to the audio description project, adp.acb.org. It'll let you know what has audio description and where you can watch it. And you can go to the adna.org. That's the adna.org. And you could try to figure out who's narrating this, because I swear to God, it doesn't have anything at the end of the film. Nothing. It didn't give me a company. It didn't give me a name. It gave me nothing. I stayed this time to the end of the credits. The credits were so short. There's only like, I don't know, 15 seconds of credits. Nothing at the end of this. So, that's almost never happens, you know? Usually there's at least a company. But, no, I have no idea who or what did this. So, yep. There you go. That's it for me today. I gotta go review something else, but I will see you on the other side.